from Ontario. It's early morning here. The sun is rising. How are you guys doing?
We're great.
Good, how are you?
Good.
It's our
It's
evening.
really nice to see you, like actually see you, because I've read your work, we've published your work. It is nice to connect online. So I thank you for connecting and talking with me. So we're going to Taiwan. We're going to AST, the international school, the American International School in Taichung. Could you take a moment and introduce yourself?
Okay, Laura,
would
you
you
go
like to
first.
start? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I'm Laura Moy. I teach social studies in the high school at American School in Taichung. And I'm very new here. This is my second school year, although I was born and grew up in Hong Kong. But this is the first time in my adult life coming back to live and work in Asia.
That sounds very interesting. So, in your teacher perspective, that's really awesome. Go ahead. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Yahweh.
Okay, I'm Yahweh Chang. I have been teaching Chinese at international schools for almost 20 years. I enjoy teaching and love to share Chinese language and culture. Teaching is learning is what I experience every day. Students always teach me new things, and they constantly remind me to see the world through the eyes of the child. I enjoy doing service work, and I have been the advisor of the Red Cross Club since 2012. And that is why I'm a part of the outreach programs at AST.
So, what got me interested about the school and the programs you're doing is you're doing something a little bit different, but both of you connect to your community really well. So, my second question is for our viewers who do not know the programs that you're running, can you briefly describe what you do at your school that connects you and your school to the community you teach in? Anyone can start.
Laura, you first because I attached to Timon. So Timon first.
Okay. Well, like I said, I am new here. This is my second year, but I come from a background of human rights activism. So before being a teacher, this is my seventh year as a teacher, but I had a 15-year career in human rights activism. So community service and advocacy around social justice issues is very dear to my heart. And when I got to Taiwan, it was really important to me to meet people who were doing human rights work and to learn about the NGO community. It was really cool to not just be hired as the social studies teacher in the high school, but also to inherit the Taimun or the Taiwan Model United Nations program. Because as many of your viewers probably know, Model United Nations is a program that has just grown and grown and grown over the decades and is such a wonderful outlet for students to learn about global issues and to engage. Sometimes those debates can feel a little bit abstract, even though they're about real world issues like climate change or, arms issues or what have you. And so coming in, I really wanted to see how we could connect the Taimun program to what's going on in Taiwan. So last year we had an opportunity to connect with the NGO community, largely based in Taipei, who connected me with a professor of social work who is herself an Indigenous person and studies Indigenous communities. And she really brings a global perspective. She's studied overseas. And I thought this is a really good person to help the students in Taiwan to understand how racism connects for us. Because the students, they decide so much about the program. They really do run the conference, and they were doing this long before I arrived. And they're the ones who really taught me how to run the program. I've never run a Model UN program before. Even though I've run lots of conferences as an activist. And so they really wanted to pick the theme, United Against Racism. We were just coming out of the summer of, the George Floyd shooting, and there was a lot of attention in the United States but there were global protests, and your viewers may or may not know that. I know in Canada there were protests, all sparked because of something horrible that happened in one place in the United States. And there were really protests in every corner of the world, including in Taiwan. And so, talking with the students, they felt racism was an important connection. I said, well, we really need to think about racism beyond the black and white context of the United States and really think, what is the context in Taiwan? And so connecting with the situation of indigenous people seemed to make a lot of sense.
Mhm.
So through this professor, we were able to connect. And then this is where we connect with the long-term relationship that Yahweh has cultivated with a elementary school that is largely made up of indigenous children who come to our school on an annual basis. And so they were part of our closing ceremony, and the professor of indigenous communities was part of the opening ceremony. So it was a great way to kind of connect the local with the global, so to speak.
Now, do community members come and attend this conference, or do they hear about it? What's the connection? How does the information go out to the community?
Yeah, I would say that, you know, what Yahweh does with Red Cross is a lot more what I would call community service.
Yes.
Tai Moon is different. It's not really open to the public, but it is open to all high school students in Taiwan. And when we don't have a pandemic, it's open to any high school student who can get themselves here. But it's been interesting during the pandemic that all the Taiwan-based Model UN conferences have only had Taiwan participants for obvious reasons. So the people coming came from at least a dozen schools around Taiwan. So I think like the connection up and down the island that students are able to make with each other and to learn more about a global issue and its connection in Taiwan, I think it was more the way that your theme of community outreach kind of connects with our conference.
Thank you for connecting that. What about the Red Cross program? Do you want to dive deeper into that?
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit more.
Okay, I can introduce our program. About 10 years ago, the ASC Red Cross Club reached out to Fazhi Elementary School, located in Nantou Mountains, also known as the Bunong tribe. After receiving a very positive response from Fazhi, we decided to visit them during the fall break in 2013 for the first time. Our friendship has continued since then. Last December, we even had a chance to visit them again during our winter break. We taught them English, and they shared their Bunong tribe culture with us. The traditional archery was a very fun part of the whole field trip. The children from the Bunong tribe were very enthusiastic, and we all had a great time. Since the year of 2014, we have invited them to perform their traditional ballads during Taiwan closing ceremony every year, allowing the ASC community and the MUN, the Taiwan participants, to enjoy their beautiful voices and culture. Moreover, the elementary students from both schools interacted on that day through doing some team building activities, presenting their science fair projects, and baking cookies hosted by ASC parents. So through those uh, various activities, our students learn to understand the principles of volunteering and create wonderful memories. So it's great for the students to develop understanding and respect towards indigenous culture.
I love the connection. So I like the global thinking in the first program and how it connected to the local thinking, connecting it back to your community. So what happens somewhere else in a different country, connecting makes an impact in your school and your community, and that's important to know. Since we're worlds apart, right? We're continents apart and hours apart in time in this interview. It's nice to see how what you're doing connects to my classroom, because I am also a classroom teacher in Ontario, Canada. It connects to a different country, United States, which is our neighboring country. And if you think about it, that's what connects us as global educators, which connects me back to the second question I have. I always like to call in my classroom light bulb moments where we have ideas that spark. So, what is a light bulb moment for you that made you connect with your students and your community when you were working? What's that one thing that happened while you were teaching this year? And what would you like to highlight and say, okay, this was my spark. This what this is what made me want to continue with the program for next year, and talk about it here. Anyone can go.
Laura, go.
Because I was
Well,
excited to read about these. Like, I was so excited to write this article and to see all the good things you're doing. And it made me want to go visit your school one day.
one
That's
day, huh?
how excited I was. So tell me a little bit more. What's that one thing?
I think for me, I'm a social studies teacher because I believe in civics education.
Mm-hmm.
And, in the United States, we really talk about that in such a national context. And the history of history is nationalistic. It's to learn how to love your country and to be loyal to your country. And I think we're in a global age now. It's not good enough to just love your country. You have to love humanity. You have to love the earth. And our fates and our worlds are too deeply interconnected to do a social studies education on such a limited level. So I've been thinking a lot this year in particular about how do you do civics education at an international school where people who are your students are not even from the same country? How do you instill a sense of civic responsibility and a sense of connection to the local and a connection to their home countries if they're not from Taiwan?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure if I have a good light bulb moment, but I really have been thinking a lot about how to introduce the students to what's going on in, um, the NGO community here, but also how to introduce them to basic civics, such as going to City Hall to meet the mayor's staff. And of course, if you're Korean and you're here in Taiwan, you're not technically a citizen of Taichung. I'm not a citizen of Taichung. But we went there to talk about climate change. And surely our local lawmakers have an important role to play. And as people living here, we have an important voice to raise about something that affects everyone everywhere. So I don't know about particular light bulb moments, but I'm just continually grappling with how do we connect the students to the local, to that slogan, think globally, act locally. And what does that mean in an international school? It's a really interesting conundrum to grapple with.
And one bit at a time, right? You start somewhere, you can go somewhere else with it. You kind of go with the flow of the students and how the year is going. And that's interesting to hear. What about the other program that you do with the local community, the indigenous groups? Connecting history is an important part of learning, where we are, why we're in different countries, why the country is set up the way it is. What was a light bulb moment as you worked with the indigenous community in your area?
Okay. I like to share that a few weeks ago during my Chinese class, I asked the students to write about something significant happened during their winter break. Both Angela and Natasha wrote about the trip to Fazhi. I didn't expect this, so I was pretty amazed while reading their articles. I'm going to quote their words. These are authentic, okay? Angela wrote, with their energetic and optimistic personalities, we soon became closer to them. It is very heartwarming whenever I see their contented smiles when they answer a vocabulary question correctly. I realized the difference between children living in urban and rural areas. Due to a fast paced lifestyle, people living in the city are often indifferent towards those around them. However, This experience allowed me to meet more people who can warm my heart and brought me the insight that kindness can be everywhere in the world. While Natasha wrote, we used flashcards to quiz them on some daily items. So I found it very interesting because they put so much effort into learning the vocabulary and were eager to win the game. I had so much fun with the children there that I felt reluctant to leave the school. So while reading their words, I feel that all of the hard work had paid off. I believe that they both tasted the sweetness of the service work. So that was one of my light bulb moments.
I love it. I love the student voice coming out because what we think we teach them is different sometimes than what they gain out of a program. And to hear their perspective is just amazing. So, going back to the next question that Laura kind of highlighted, my producer actually gave me this idea. It says, think globally, act locally. Wonderful. I love it. It's such a significant concept when it comes to making a difference because we, as educators, as teachers, we come into this world to teach. And it's our gift to give. How people take it, what they take with us, bits and pieces, we leave behind as we finish off our careers or we do something different. How do you think because your impact from this article is very evident. I love the way that you both loved what you're doing. You kind of went with the flow of the students. You got them excited and you got yourself excited, even though sometimes you didn't have an end in mind. It's not about, I'm going to accomplish this. You're more like going with the flow to see where you can go. How do you think your work is impactful globally? When people are watching this show, they're going to take something out of this article. That is my hope, to say, I can try that in my classroom in some way. How do you think your work locally in your school at AST is impacting global communities? Because I love it. I love the fact that you're connecting with a global issue, Laura, such as climate change. You're empowering your students to find avenues to advocate for themselves.
I love being in Taiwan, and I love that this is a democracy, and it's a young democracy, but it's an active one. And the students at our school have a lot of privilege, and they come to our school because they want to pursue, or their families want them to pursue, an education at a university in an English-speaking country. So they're going to go to Canada, and they're going to go to the UK and the United States, and they're going to interact with other students. And they're going to be moved by that experience of community service with the Fajr community, or being empowered to ask a question in front of the deputy mayor at City Hall, or being able to be part of our Eco School project where they're making decisions for our school about how we can reduce our carbon footprint. So I think that this kind of hands-on education is changing them, and it's making them see the power that they have. And I think that they can be influential when they interact with their international group of students, when they're in whatever university they find themselves in. And a lot of them are going to come back to Taiwan, and they're going to be part of the vibrant democracy that is growing here. And Taiwan is such an important voice in the region, in Asia. There's a lot of struggles for democracy, particularly with one of our big neighbors close by. And so for this country that, to Taiwanese people, sometimes it seems like it's such a small country. But I think Taiwan is such a valuable country in this region because of the democracy that it is growing. And I have so much hope that these students who are optimistic and who really have a heart and care for other people, that they will take these moments of empowerment and experience with true issues in their community and the planet to the next level in whatever careers that they choose, or however they choose to participate in civil society, even as supporters, if not people who directly work for civil society organizations. So
Thank
that's my
you.
hope.
That's nicely put. Thank you. What about the work that you do? About connecting and making an impact with your indigenous community. What's your
Okay.
light bulb global thinking moment where you think, okay, I'm doing this in my school. Someone else can take this information and apply it in their own country, in their own schools. Globally thinking. What do you think I can take out of your work?
Okay. Honestly speaking, I never thought about how leading the Red Cross Club would contribute to society because my starting point is just simply doing what I enjoy. I feel really happy, and I hope one day that the students will be able to experience the happiness. For now, if the students only do the work for the service hours, it doesn't matter because if they really put efforts into what they do, they could make a change and do a lot in the society by helping people in need and develop sympathy and empathy for them. As we care more about the students, care more about the people around us, we will be mentally healthier. And in this process, we can also learn to be more grateful for what we have and understand the value of service work and treat people more modestly. In this world we live in, many people suffer from mental issues. By doing service and paying more attention to others' needs, it will bring a positive change to our mindset and mental health.
Absolutely. And I think service industry advocacy on the UN part of the club, I think connects together to say that you're working in the elementary section going into high school and giving students that voice and choice and how they want to be who they want to be creates a long lasting impact in their education. And for me, looking from the outside, because I am looking from the outside into your school, I see such positive engagement in student interest. Being the teachers that you're running these clubs with, you're actually getting the students motivated to be who they are. Not every child is different, every student is different. They're going to take something different out of what you're teaching. And I would like to say thank you for taking a risk with me and explaining your programs, being able for me to look at them and kind of analyze them and ask questions. You were very open to having me ask lots of questions online, and you didn't even know me, and that's wonderful because I learned from it and I brought in such a different point of view that maybe you had anticipated, and it's nice to see that you do the work that you do and you're sharing because I really do think you're making a global impact in what you're doing because by sharing this with others, other people like me, teachers, can go in and say, I could try that. That's working in Laura's classroom and Yahweh's classroom. And I'm going to try to see how it would work in my classroom and stay connected. I also like to take this opportunity to say thank you to Dr. Colin Brown at AST who opened the doors at your school because I did not know him as well, to let me come in virtually and see what you're doing. It is a big risk doing that, and I think it's a positive risk to get to know your school. And is there anything else you want to say before we end the show?
Yeah, I'd like to add something. Just
Sure.
like what you just like what you said, I would like to thank our head of school, Dr. Brown, for his passionate support. I remember when I was planning the trip to Fazhi last semester, there was a transportation issue. Only certain vehicles can go up to the township where Fazhi is located. Dr. Brown guaranteed that he would do his best to find ways to send us there. And I could feel that he would be willing to drive us up there if that was the best solution. Luckily, our problem was solved, and I appreciate the supportive administrators because they make the whole thing happen. And I would like to highlight our students because they are just amazing. They are my real motivation while doing the service work. So the real stars of the whole program is our students.
Thank you for sharing that. It is so true. Um, Anything else? Final thoughts, Laura?
Yeah, I wanted to echo that. If there are administrators that are watching, it makes a world of a difference when your administrators support what you want to do and make it easy rather than make it a struggle. And I
Yes.
think we are fortunate with our leadership here that they do see the incredible value of this kind of education. I also wanted to say that I think it's a real credit to my colleague Yahweh that she has spent so many years developing a relationship with the Fajr community. And I think, coming from a US context, I think we shouldn't take it lightly when people from more privileged backgrounds want to work with more marginalized groups. And so I know that you have First Nation people in Canada, and we have Indigenous people in the United States, and many countries have Indigenous people don't even realize. But I think that the relationship that Yahweh has cultivated and having the benefit of her longevity at the school means that there's a real relationship of trust and mutual respect. And when the students come together, they're able to really learn from each other in a mutual way. And in the summer, Taiwan has done exceptionally well during the pandemic, unlike most of the world. We've been very safe, but we've also had some struggle. And in May, it was very challenging. We had an outbreak. Of course, an outbreak to us is like so small compared to anything happening in the Western world. But the students at Fajr really needed computers to be able to learn without having the benefit of being in school. And because of this relationship, Yahweh is able to connect with our IT staffer, and we were able to provide them with some computers that we weren't using anymore. And so to me, that's beyond an act of charity. That was sort of like being in this communication with this school community and seeing that they needed something that we had. And I think that you didn't have to go searching for how to contribute. There's a sort of a natural relationship that made it really clear to Yahweh that this is something we can do to support them. And so I think this kind of authentic relationship is really valuable. So I think it's important not to think of service as a one-off entity or to swoop into a community that has students that are not like our own so that we can learn from them or whatever. We have to be very careful, particularly in North America, I think, with this sort of cultural voyeurism. And how do you develop authentic relationships knowing that there is such a difficult past, such an unjust past for some of these communities? So I just really want to highlight any teacher who wants to connect with more marginalized communities to really think about a long-term relationship. I think that it will really enrich your students' experience and be more mutually beneficial to the community you want to support.
Thank you. I wanted to conclude with letting you know that for me, the connection was not going in knowing everything, because I went into this article not knowing anything about you guys or the programs that you're running. I think going in with a lifelong learning perspective really helped, because then it opens the door to communicate efficiently to build that relationship. So I thank you for your time and your work. And I know I've taken a lot of your time today and in the past as we put this article together. I can't wait to come visit one day. If that ever happens, I will keep in touch, because I am also from a little small island that I was born in, even though I live in Canada. So I do pass the country to go into my country of birth. And I hope that I one day get to visit your country that you're working in, and to contribute and give back to your school. So I thank you for your time today. I wish you a good night and a good morning from here. Take care. Goodbye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for watching School Rubric on YouTube. Make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe in order to stay looped in on all of our diverse collection of shows, interviews, panels, tutorials, and more from educators around the globe. And visit us at SchoolRubric.com for even more great content such as our online articles, Interact magazine, featured podcasts, and more. Thank you.